It's probably a little early in the year to talk about a movie's Oscar chances, but this one I think will at least be a part of the conversation come the end of the year, if not nominated for a few things. Let's talk about the new Alex Garland film, Civil War. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new film Civil War. This is in theaters right now. It already broke a record for the studio releasing it, A24. Usually they do more independent features, but they've been really getting some accolades lately, including just a couple of years ago taking home Best Picture for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But they had their biggest opening weekend ever with this movie. Now, to be fair, a lot of times they do a tiered strategy where they'll release, in very select cities, New York and LA usually, to start out and then kind of build from there. So it's rare that we get a movie with this big of a release from them, but in any event, it broke the record for them for biggest opening weekend. So something to be celebrated for sure. But before we launch into the specifics of this film, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We do movie and TV reviews here on the channel, and just about every day I do try to post something new. So there's always a lot going on here on the channel, a lot to check out. My Letterboxd is in the description. You can check out my Letterboxd that has all of the movies that I'm watching and what I've rated them. A lot of times, even before the video will go up, I'll have my rating for them. So you can check that out in the description below. But please consider subscribing, hit that like button, comment below. All that stuff, of course, helps the channel out. All right, let's get to this one. Civil War. Alex Garland, I think he is one of our most interesting filmmakers. I'm not sure that his movies always hit for me. There was one from 2022, or maybe it was just last year, called Men. I think it was 2022, that I didn't think was all that great. But his earlier films include 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. He is now working on 28 Years Later. That's going to be the third movie in that trilogy, I guess now. But more recently, he has done this movie Annihilation that I thought was really cool. But he's probably best known for the movie Ex Machina. That was a really, really groundbreaking film. I think that actually did get an Oscar nomination for screenplay, if I'm remembering that correctly. But he also did this really cool sci-fi show on FX called Devs, which actually features a couple of people in this film. Nick Offerman, for example, was one of the stars of that, and he plays the president in this movie. Alex kind of likes to stick with some of the same actors. But briefly, let me tell you about the plot. I'm not going to go into too many details about it because I think it's more interesting to kind of go in, not necessarily blind, but, I think a more basic approach is probably what Garland would want going into this movie, because the movie itself doesn't really take sides, and we'll talk about that. But this basically is set in the near future, and it essentially follows a handful of journalists around, including ones by Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, and Kaylee Spaney, as they travel across the U.S. in hopes to get a presidential interview during a civil war which has just ripped the nation apart. So that's sort of the log line here. We also have acting in this Stephen McKinley Henderson, who was also a part of Devs. I mentioned Nick Offerman. We have a very small but important role from Jesse Plemons. He's getting a lot of accolades for his performance, and he actually ended up replacing somebody. They won't say who dropped out, but somebody dropped out, and then, of course, he is married in real life to Kirsten Dunst, and she was like, why don't you ask Jesse? He'll probably do it. And so he ended up doing it, and it's one of the most memorable portions of the film. But anyway, so the things I really like about this movie, well, there's almost everything. But here are the best parts about it. So this is really not a political based movie. For those of you who are like, well, we're in a political year here in the United States. Like, I don't know that I want to see a movie about Civil War right now. We seem to be kind of on the brink of that. This movie isn't really about that. Yes, it is about the Civil War, that is, potentially in the future, but it's certainly a a skewed version or a I don't want to say a fantasy version, but in this, California and Texas have united against the rest of the country, which, that seems like it would never happen, right? One is typically more left leaning and one is typically more right leaning. So it seems like they would be odd bedfellows. But, in Garland's mind, he said, let's make that sort of the one of the contentious parts. But this movie does not take any kind of a side, other than the side of, war is hell kind of thing. And because of that, there's no real specific details about, how the war started or, what side is better than the other or whatever. We don't really go into those places. And I really actually respected that from Garland, because he could have made, I think, a piece that maybe would alienate one side over the other, or make Nick Offerman a stand-in for one of the candidates, which he's publicly gone on the record and said that his portrayal of the president here, who is unnamed in this movie, just the president they call him, is not inspired, he said, specifically by Donald Trump, but, you could take it on either side, I guess, whatever side you lean. And look, we don't do politics on this channel. I just think that's, there's enough places for that if you want that. But if you watch enough of my channel, I think you know where I stand on things. But I really liked how there was no sort of okay, this is, the right leaning ones are right, or the left leaning ones are right, blue is right, red is right. There's none of that, and I really, really thought that was an interesting way to go about it. But really, what this movie focuses on is more even than the war itself, is the embedded journalists, played, like I said, by Kirsten Dunst and the others in the cast. And it's more about their connection to each other, and their connection with the war, and their connection with the troops, and all of that. And it's such a interesting way to go, because usually in a war movie, we're focused on, the people at battle, the generals, whatever, the president, for example. And here we don't do that. We're focusing on the journalists. And yeah, they have a really, really hard as hell job. If you were lucky enough to be able to find the Oscar-nominated documentary 20 Days at Mariupol. I think it actually won Best Documentary Feature at the Oscars. That was all about, the first 20 days of this current Russian war with Ukraine, and the journalists, the whole movie basically from their cameras being embedded in those areas. And it was very, very scary stuff. And here we get that again, from obviously a more fictional perspective, but it's amazing to see, the way that journalists are treated, and the press are treated, by different factions along the way. Also, it gives Garland a chance to sort of stop the action momentarily and give us a black and white snapshot that, one of the journalists is taking. I thought that was a really cool way to kind of set it up. In terms of the acting, look, I can take or leave Kirsten Dunst. She was fine as Mary Jane 20 years ago. I can't say I've really, followed her career necessarily, but I think she's very good in this. You can see her character's sort of arc. And I don't want to even go much more into it than that, but she is, by the end of the movie, kind of grizzled. She's just like, what am I doing here, kind of thing. And I thought that was a nice kind of arc, I guess, for her character. But the big revelation to me in this movie, in terms of the acting, was Kaylee Spaney. I saw her in Priscilla just a few months ago. She played Priscilla Presley, and obviously it's a different era, so of course her makeup is different, and she's got a big, kind of bouffant hair, whatever. But I did not even recognize her in this role. I don't know if I've seen her in things before Priscilla, maybe in some bit roles or something, but I didn't even know it was her till the end credits rolled, and I was like, oh my God, Kaylee Spaney, Priscilla. She looks completely different here, and she, I think, is as much of a scene stealer as anybody. Obviously, like I said, Jesse Plemons and his role has been talked about a little bit online already, but I think she is a scene stealer as well. She is potentially, one young actress to watch in the coming years, because she was great in this. But look, the sound, I think, is going to for sure be up for an Oscar. It's hard to say anything else at this point, because most of the Oscar push movies don't come out until, October, November, December. So who knows what's going to be up at the Oscars? Does this have a chance at a Best Picture nomination? Maybe. Best Screenplay nomination? Maybe. But I think Best Sound, it's the best sound I've seen in a movie in years. So I think it has to at least be part of that conversation come Oscar time. So kudos to those people, in the sound department. But yeah, I mean, Alex Garland, look, like I said, his movies may not always hit. For me personally, but I think this is his best film. I think this is one that we're going to be talking about 20 years from now when we talk about war movies, when we talk about how to treat characters in war movies and different angles that we can go to. And look, it may be frustrating to some that this movie goes kind of non-political and doesn't necessarily take anybody's side other than the side of, hey, let's have peace. War sucks. Let's look at it like that. Maybe that will be frustrating for people. For me, it was actually quite refreshing. I really, really liked the way he did that. I leave Civil War with an A. You can check this out in theaters now, and it is available in IMAX as well. I didn't get to see it in the IMAX, but probably not a bad idea if you can get out and do that. But thank you for watching Dan Reviews It. We'll see you next time. Bye.